Hello and welcome to the Celtic Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Jarrod, and on tonight's Tim Talk podcast, I'm joined by Willie Innes. How are you, Willie?
I'm doing not bad, Jarrod. How are you, mate?
Yeah, pretty good, Willie. Pretty good. All things considered, looking forward to having a bit of a chat about you and chat with you about your lifetime following Celtic. So, well, on the Tim Talks, we usually just talk to Celtic fans. We're going through our podcast roster at the moment to give your listeners a bit of a bit more of an in-depth on all of us as the podcasters on the show. So, Willie, how did you become a Celtic fan?
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons is all my family supports Rangers, so that's probably one of the biggest ones. My uncle's a Celtic supporter. I'm a Celtic supporter. My nephew's a Celtic supporter. I suppose growing up there was a competition between my dad and my uncle. Well, he's going to support Celtic. He'll support Rangers, and I chose Celtic. There's also I remember having a conversation with a friend at a very early age, and he was convincing me Celtic were the better team. And then there was the big day when had to go and pick the first football top I was going to get, and there was a choice between the blue and the green and white one. And the green and white one came home with me that day. So been a
Wow,
Celtic
there's a
supporter ever since.
win for the good guys.
Yeah, pretty much. Aye.
Yeah, so yeah, just whereabouts. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself as well, so that whereabouts you grew up and yeah, going down to Celtic games and stuff like that. Just give us a little bit of a spiel there.
Uh, now, I grew up on the very north coast of Scotland, so getting down to Celtic games was a bit difficult. I didn't actually get down to games until I was in my late teens, early 20s, sort of, maybe early 20s actually, before I started getting down to games. Is always that time versus money thing. When you had the time, you didn't have the money, and when you had the money, you didn't have the time. Like so, but growing up and all around me is Highland League football. Everyone is in sort of Highland League teams, and even growing up, Ross County and Inverness, two different Inverness teams at the time. So your team was always going to be very far from home. Even I think Aberdeen and St Johnstone would have been the most closest teams to me that were league teams. So yeah, very far away from a lot of things up there in the north, but beautiful part of the country, really beautiful.
Happy days. So, Willie, we've had recently had a change of manager at Celtic. So, how do you look back on Ange's time at the club?
I look back on Ange's time with great fondness. It's going to be one of the managerial reigns that I'll always remember. He was phenomenal for us. Like that never say die attitude. You know what I mean? Just the dynamic style of football. It was fast paced. It was exciting. They never gave up playing till the final whistle. I just really enjoyed the way Ange's ethos on the game and how it should be played, and I thought it suited Celtic down to a T.
It's good to hear. And with Rogers coming back to the club, what are you looking forward to the most about him returning?
I think it's a continuation of the domination because I can't see Brendan Rodgers coming up here and doing anything else. He is a top drawer coach. I know I've had my say over the weeks about how he departed and how it left a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth, but we've got the best candidate possible there to come forward and take the job. And it'll be really interesting to see what he's learned since he's been away and if he can progress us to that next level in Europe, see if it is ready for him to try and progress, take the next steps with us.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing for all of us. Like, he wins seven out of seven trophies in his time at the club. So it's not like domestically we're too worried on that front. It's more a matter of what's he going to do for the club in Europe, and because in my opinion, what we do in Europe, if we do well and we strengthen for Europe, that'll take care of itself back in the league.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you want to be focused on Europe, you got to get the right sort of players in, and that sort of players they're not gonna mince about in Scotland. They'll get results in Scotland as well as Europe. You know what I mean? So it all sort of goes hand in hand for me. Good runs in Europe will see good runs in the league at the same time. So yeah, like I say, Brendan Rodgers, I think it will be a continuation of the domination. So I can't see it being any other way, to be honest with you. I think the board have acted really well and made a smart move getting Brendan Rodgers back. And hopefully it'll be another fruitful spell for him there in charge of us.
Yeah, there was definitely no pussyfooting around when they went to sign him. They're like, here's the candidate, here's the guy they want, and they
Yeah.
made it happen. So, yeah, like I've said on our pod normal that I think I wasn't a fan of Rogers. Like I don't, but he was the best candidate. So now he's in the door. We back him and we back the team and off we go.
Yeah, I don't think they spoke to anyone else. Of my personal opinion on it, like I think all the paper talk or Enzo Marescas and the Knutsons and all that, I just think they went straight to Rogers. Right, mate, Ange is leaving. We want you back, and it's going to happen. And I think they've acted very very swiftly. I think it was like 14 days between Ange's exit, Ange winning the cap and leaving, and Rogers being back in charge. So kudos to the board for the swift moving. And yeah,
I think the talk was there was a whole bunch of other names, but the only other one they actually spoke to was Fark. I think that was it because they didn't want to
yeah,
get the Eddie Howe situation where all the eggs were in one basket. So I think he was the only one that they spoke to other than Rogers. And the only thing we missed out on with Fark was a whole bunch of good puns for podcast names.
I know. It's dangerous one.
Yeah. So, what's your take on the club structure at the moment, Willie? Do you think everything's been set up and modernised well under Ange over the last few years, or do you think we need a director of football at the club, or is Mark Lawwell already doing that role?
I think it looks pretty much like Mark Lowell is doing that role. It is sort of one I would like to get in there. So if there is going to be sort of a notice period for the manager leaving, that another manager will be underway pretty swiftly, like we have done this time. But the structure seems to have, like, since Lennon left, I think the structure has moved forward leaps and bounds. I think the board took a lot of heavy criticism for the way that we were being run under the 10 season when Lennon was in charge, and everything just sort of fell apart that year. And I think the board acted quite swiftly. We got the new director, not director of football. What was it? Chairman, not chairman. What's his name? Peter
Don
Lawless. What's that? Sorry.
Mackay, the CEO.
Aye, the CEO. That's it. I'm struggling to get that one out. Aye, we got the new CEO. He came in and he went out quickly, and then Nicholson took charge, and Lowell came on board, and we seen the stats man from Benfica came on board, and it just seems to they seem to have realised that we've been dragging our heels and we're behind everyone now. Like that was in the same sort of level as us before, and they're all sort of starting to get ahead of us, and we need to start acting swiftly. And they have done. I think the only area that really would need to be improved is the youth development. I don't see enough players coming through. I know they get poached. Quite the really top ones get poached. There should be a bit more coming through the youth development side of it, like. But that's something they can work on. You know what I mean? They've got the B team there now. Maybe in a couple of years' time, we'll start to see some sort of fruition from that. But at the moment, it just seems to be lagging a little bit behind. That's the only area I would say we're really struggling with.
I have to agree with you on that, Willie. Like the youth development thing is probably the biggest cause. We develop good quality players and then they're leaving at age 15, 16 because they know there's no real pathway from the Colts through to the senior team.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because they've got that Colts team there, but it's not a very high standard of football. And we would like them to be in the second division or the first division or to push on to trying to get promotion to the Scottish Championship. But that's never going to happen. And the reserve league's done and dusted. They're never going to get in there either. Like so, it's kind of a difficult one for them to try and progress anything because they haven't got the competition in front of them to try and push them on to the next level. So loaning players out can be good. It can also be detrimental too. So it's a very difficult situation, but it is certainly something that we need to be looking at to try and progress, I would think, in some way or another, if we can.
Yeah, 100%. So, how do you think our recruitment has been over the last 12 to 18 months as a club?
Yeah, it's been really, really good. I mean, we've got players in cheap. We've got them in on decent contracts. We've got them in on reasonable rates for wages and stuff like that. It's been really good. There's been very few misses, to be honest with you. I think McCarthy, you could probably put down as a miss on Abelgard, but they were both through the circumstances. I think McCarthy came in because we needed anyone at that given time, and he was available. And Abelgard, well, the whole situation with Russia and Ukraine escalated, and he became available and was worth a punt, and it didn't work. So it's hardly a big flop, big money lost on it. Like so,
And
I
the
think
only
he's
other one,
been really good. Yeah,
really, would be the only other one.
who's that?
Itaguchi. He'd be the only other one that's
Ah,
been a bit of
yeah, Degucci. Yeah, it's a shame, but that's at Alloa, wasn't it? They went out and injured him straight away. Like,
a
well,
first
right.
game,
Yeah,
injured, couldn't break into the squad, then goes back to Japan. First game there, breaks his leg.
yeah. I mean, it's a real shame. I think he's heading back to us now. That says loan over there will be finished too. Yeah,
End of the season, so come December would be when his
yeah.
loan's up. 'Cause it's a 12-month, so calendar year loan. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a shame, right? I mean, he is obviously a talented player. It just didn't work for him here. Like, it's an awful shame, like because you see the success that Maeda, Hitati, and Furuhashi have had. Like, it's just a shame it couldn't work out for him too. Like,
yep, 100%. What current players at the club do you think will be moving on in the next 6 to 12 months?
um, in the next 12 months, I kind of think Abada will move on. Hitati will probably be subject to some heavy bids for. Maybe Carl Starfelt and Joe Hart, whose contract will end this time next year, will probably move along. You got the Alsos that should be moved on, like the Soros and the Yetis and McCarthy and that. But for me, the big four that it would be Abada, Hatati, Hart, and Starfelt. Like.
Yep, I have to agree on that. I think the talk is Joe Hart's already said in an interview that he want on his deals up here. He wants to go back to Shrewsbury Town and finish
Yeah,
his career there, where he started it off at his first club. So we already know that once he's got this season, I think, under contract, and that's it now. So maybe
yeah,
this year and next year. So he'll be for the off pretty soon too. But yeah, the majority of them, it'll all come down if do we get the right bid. Um, the other one I'd add to that would be Turnbull because he's got a year left on his deal,
yeah.
and I don't really know how he fits into the current squad. So he's one that we could potentially see move on reasonably soon. But it also wouldn't shock me if we randomly extended him.
Yeah, but they seem to be the order of the day, isn't it? Everyone's getting a new contract as it goes. Like I see the memes of James McCarthy's new deal have been out there. Crack up, like.
Just driving people insane just to stitch him up. I love it.
Yeah, but I
So
yeah, I think Starfelt he might be looking for a move to Lisbon. But look at Jacinta's just signed for Sporting, so could be a move over there for him if he can get it. Like.
well,
Couldn't blame you. Wouldn't blame him either. Like, you know what I mean?
as long as we replace and strengthen the same way we did when Juranovic went out and Johnson come in, as long as we upgraded a similar sort of standard like that move, I'd be okay with it. But
Exactly that. Like.
I still think he's probably the second best centre back in Scotland, so it'd be a bit of a loss losing him, but it is what it
I,
is.
he's a fantastic defender. See for ball winning, there's no better. Like he really is. But it just every now and again, he just has this little moment, and it's just, oh, what are you doing, man? Play the
It's,
ball.
it's the
Just
new to
focus.
try and
Focus.
get
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Boyata, Simunovic did it. Benkovic, when he was in, was like that.
Yeah.
I think the last centre back pairing where we had two next to each other that didn't have one guy like that was when we had Virgil playing alongside Denier.
That was some good defending and that too that was there. And then you had like Majstorovic as well. He was another one who was prone to just absolutely just fresh air in it. You're just like, oh, what
Yeah,
happened there, buddy? Like,
it's been a bit like that. So we'll see how it all plays out there. But
yeah,
yeah, I still think Starfelt's quality, but
I do. I actually I think the partnership he has with CCV is really really good, and it's just a pity they didn't really get a chance to play in Europe together last season because one was injured or out. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I think we played one game last season with Jens and Stephen Welsh at centre back. Like so,
yeah, Jens played the majority of them. But
yeah,
another thing on that is Kobayashi with him there, like he copped a bunch of pelters to the end of the season, but I actually reckon in a Rogers system, he's when Rogers signed Jack Hendry before he left because he wanted that elegant ball playing
yeah,
back. Kobayashi is that Jack Hendry style that Rogers was trying to recruit before he left to go to
yeah,
Leicester. So I think Kobayashi actually suits the way Brendan wants his teams to play as a centre back. So he
yeah,
could jump from him. So
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
up
I agree with that.
three starting quality centre backs, and we can
Yeah.
just rotate.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. It'd be interesting to see. I mean, he was getting bullied a wee bit, but then he's played a season and a half. You know what I mean? He's another one of these players that's come in and he's played a full season and he has to do another half season with us. So, or he's done a half season in Japan and played a full season with us. So he's played the full season and a half.
Yeah.
He may be just tired. Maybe put him to the gym over the summer, get him on the gains, bulk him up a bit, like that Ryan Christie diet, chicken and rice, as you were saying last week.
Chicken, rice, and broccoli, get him on it, get him bulked
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
It's just, yeah, I think he was just leg weary. Let's be honest.
yeah, could well be. I mean,
Playing so much, moving halfway across the world after a year to then, after playing for a whole season, to then jump straight back into it. Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one, really.
yeah. I mean, we saw it with Hatate as well, and they sort of tapered off towards the end of their first season, so it's quite possible it was the same with him. I'm hoping it is because he does have the ability to pass balls and put them around, and it's comfortable on his left foot. You know what I mean? It's night and day comparison with him and Starfelt when the ball's at their feet. He just moves it on so quickly. There's no little stutter just before the ball's kicked. That 2 or 3 milliseconds where your heart's in your mouth going, "Oh, where's this one going?" Like I say, Starfelt again as a ball winner, he'll not be bullied. He wins the ball and he's fast too. Over a race, you wouldn't beat him. Right? I think Kyogo's faster than him, but I can't see there being many other faster than Starfelt in the team. Right?
So, what areas of the team do you think we need to strengthen this off-season, Willie?
I think maybe another centre back, a striker, a second choice striker, and a goalkeeper. The goalkeeper's the one I think we should be looking at as a priority because Joe Hart's deal's done in 12 months. Do you want to get somebody in who can bed in over a 12-month period and get ready? You know, put him in as your cup keeper for the season or just have him there as the league and European keeper and have Joe Hart as the backup for the cup games. I like the look at Angus Gann. I think he would be a good keeper for us. But with Joe Hart, he's a great keeper and he's done really, really well for us. But it's like when we had Craig Gordon and Neil Lennon went out and signed Fraser Forster. Everyone's like, oh, why is he getting Fraser Forster back? Because we've got Craig Gordon. Craig Gordon's a good keeper. And then after 2 or 3 games, you're like, that actually makes sense. So I think it's kind of the same with Joe Hart at the minute. He is, like I say, he's a good keeper. He'll do for the season. If it's to be him, then yeah, happy days. But if we can get somebody else in, then I would be looking in that area.
I'd be reaching out to Adelaide United, going, oh, okay, how about we just do a trade? Look, players, we'll send you Segrist, and you can send us Joe Gauchi, and then Gauchi can come and train under Joe Hart and learn from his namesake. It's another Joe, and Segrist gets his move to Australia where his missus is based, and you're all set. There you go, sorted.
I've not seen this Joe Gauchi. I've heard he's go on about him a few times. He's supposedly quite a good keeper, then, is he?
Unbelievable. I rate him so high. I reckon he's the best keeping young goalkeeper coming out of Australia since Matt Ryan.
How old is he?
Like 21 or something like that, or 22. Yeah, so he won on a 5-year deal, and he still wouldn't even beat his peak when he's out of that contract.
Yeah. Do you think it would cost much?
Not really.
No, I suppose if Tilio's going for $1 million, then you might get
extra. 1.5. You could probably get him for about the same, if not maybe a little more. Maybe you get him under 2, probably easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, they're going good.
No, like I say, I think it's just a position that we could be doing better in, and it's just one that's I look at and I just say, Joe, you're a great keeper. As I say, you're a great keeper, but I think we can improve there.
For me as well, I'm looking at the positions we need to strengthen. I've said it on previous Tim talks and that with Rogers coming in, he needs a quality number 10. I think that's something for him because last time he was here, he had Rogic, who was in the 10, and he had Stu Armstrong, who could push forward and play in the 10 as well. And he had a few other guys rotating that could play there. So at the moment, you've got will Hatate move forward into that role? Would Kelmack be, if we signed another 6, would Kelmack be freed up for that role? Would Turnbull sign a long-term deal and get that position, or will he be off? Will O'Reilly be at the club long-term to play that role? Who knows? So there's plenty of options there, but we need a European quality number 10 if none of those people are being developed. Say if O'Reilly wants to move and Hatate wants to move and what's called Turnbull's out of contract, then you're basically left with one option. move Kelmac forward if you can.
Yeah.
So I think that's a bit of a priority.
I kind of think Syed Haksabanovic could sit in that role too. But I don't know how sort of good he would do it. Is his natural position a winger or what? A lot of people say it. I don't think he's an out and out winger. He may be a number 10. So it'd be interesting to see if he could do that role too. And Brendan Rodgers, he's a sort of confidence builder. He could actually sort of pep talk you up and just, right, you go out and play that role, and all of a sudden you've got a gem in there.
Well, he did
So,
that with Madison at Leicester.
yeah,
Madison was a winger and he developed him into a 10.
yeah. So it is something that they keep an eye on, I mean, I think if Rodgers does rate him quite highly, then it is a role I think he could fulfill it.
Yep. Now for the fun questions, Willie. There's 4
Yeah.
left. And this is the part where we can either be done in 10 minutes or we can be here for another 45 minutes if you want.
Yeah.
First one we start with, other than Henrik Larsson, who would be your all-time favourite Celtic player and why?
Paul McStay. Growing up with Paul McStay, he was the captain. He was just an absolute legend of a player. I mean, he won trophies to begin with, and then when we sort of slid into the sort of dark age of the Celtic times, the board was not spending money. He was always there, and he was always a shining light during that dark period. Like, as a class player, he was tracked by some top clubs in Europe. Just a beautiful left foot in him, ability to beat guys, ability to take guys on, wouldn't hide from tackles. Just a great player, great all round player. So, yeah, Paul McStay for me.
Love the maestro, and yeah, you pretty
Yeah.
much summed him up perfectly there. But it's one of them ones for me where he so easily could have left, especially in the dark times of the 90s. But the fact that, he hung around and he was, Celtic through and through the way he is, it's just, what a guy.
Yeah. He's down your way too, is he? Is it Melbourne or Sydney? He's in there. He's down there.
Yeah, I wanted to stalk him, wanted to meet him in Sydney and just give him a cuddle. I didn't even want a photo. I just say thanks for all the memories and everything you did in the night. Give him a cuddle, and that. But he doesn't like being, in the spotlight or anything too much.
I'd be a bumbling wreck. I'd just meet him about. I wouldn't know what to say or do. It would be one of those sort of moments in your life where you just think, "Oh, I could have done it so much better."
It'd be like a version of like the guys in Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah. Just
Yeah, brilliant. Those listening to the audio version, go check YouTube out to see Willie's facial expression on that. 23 minutes in, that's what you're after. All right. So, who would be your top 5 Celtic players that you have seen play in your lifetime?
So McStay, Larsson, Neil Lennon, Arthur Boric, and Andy Tom. I just loved watching Andy Tom when I was a kid in the 90s.
Wow.
Like I say, we didn't have a great team, and you had the three amigos up. We did have a decent team, but we didn't have great results. And that we had the three amigos up front, and Andy Tom. He seems to be the forgotten man of that sort of time.
I honestly think that's the first time Andy Tom has ever been mentioned on coming up on 300 episodes across every show, Tim Talks, Spotlight ones where we talk to CSCs. I think it's probably the first time he's been mentioned on this podcast ever.
Yeah.
There you go, Willie.
There you go. I just loved watching him. He scored that 25-yarder against Rangers. It was just a phenomenal goal. And he scored a good few goals for us, whether he was playing out in the right, cutting in, or playing through the middle. He was a great player, and he was a record signing at the time. He came from Leverkusen for over $2 million, which was a big outlay for us at the time. So I really, really enjoyed watching him play. And Arthur Boric was a legend. I just loved. He was just mad. He was absolutely mad as anything. Like, you know what I mean? He interacted with the fans and that, and managers will say to you, just to block out the fans, block out the fans. He just seemed to feed off their energy and that. I remember going to a Cali Thistle game, and I had my cousin's wee boy with me, and we're standing on the. He was with me, and he was stood on the advertising hoarding behind the goal where the Celtic fans are, and there was another guy with his son to the inside of us, and Arthur Boric came running over and picked up the other boy and sort of took him out onto the pitch, got his photo taken and put him back. And me and wee Josh were just sitting there looking. He was right next to us when he grabbed the boy, and I felt so bad because I thought if he'd taken my wee Josh, he would have been brilliant. Like, would have made his day in that. And my cousin would have just, he should have been over the moon, and so would his dad. But he was as mad as a box of frogs, like blessing himself at Ibrox and that. Like, it's brilliant.
Love a mad goalkeeper. I think you've got to have
Yeah,
something a bit loose in the skull to be a
yeah,
goalkeeper, and he was just right up there. So
yeah.
you
He
said
was.
what? What was it saying about a box of frogs there, Willie? What was he?
He's as mad as a box of frogs. I think it was Neil Lennon that described him as that. He's mad. It was the first time I heard it. He's as mad as a box of frogs.
There you go. It's similar to one we got to hear. Is as mad as a cut snake. That's
Yeah,
the Australian version of it. There you go.
yeah. And
All right.
the other ones like Larson and McStay, but Neil Lennon, I give Neil Lennon a mention because he never gave up. He was an absolute warrior, centre of the park during the Martin O'Neill years and the
Yeah.
Gordon Strachan years. I just love watching Lennon play because he just gave everything for Celtic as a player. Just a shame it ended the way it did as a manager on the 10 season for him, like, just because everything else was just brilliant for him. Like.
You got to compartmentalize Lenny into three different sections. That's the way I do.
Yeah,
Lenny the
yeah,
player, unbelievable. Lenny the manager first stint, great. Lenny the manager second stint, I'll look at it and go, okay, the first 6 months where he came back and confirmed the treble. So he won the cup and won the league after Rodgers left.
yeah.
If he had left at that point there, or the following season after giving us the game against away at Lazio in that run in that season, if he had left at that point, he'd still have his legendary status.
He would die.
The people, there'd be no questions. But that last year, that just tarnished a lot for a lot of people. So that's why I split it up the way I do in my head, because I've got to give credit where it's due in terms of playing and then his first stint and everything. But yeah, and I even give
That was
credit when he was left about how he was about to go on a family holiday. He got the call and his missus turned him round at the airport and sent him back to Parkhead. So
I mean, that final season, you think it just kind of shows who Lennon was. Like we just wouldn't give up. You know what I mean? He probably should have said himself, I should give this up and let somebody else in here because it's not working." But he wouldn't give up as a player, and it seems he wouldn't give up as a manager either.
and he won't give up talking about Celtic in the media, talking about
Yeah,
Donny van der Beek or whatever his name is should come to Celtic, even though from Man United, even though they spent 39 million on him. Yeah, how much is Man United going to want for him when he's got 2 years on his deal?
yeah.
Yeah, you want a fair chunk of change. So
I
things
would
like
say so.
that, you're just like, Lenny, come on, no mate, put the
Yeah.
bucky down. You're okay.
It's like that guy who signed for Rangers at Dessers. He's like, "Oh yeah, I had him scouted for, or was it I scouted? I had him on my offer list. I had him watched at one point." I'm like, "Oh, did you?"
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Couldn't have thought highly of him if you didn't make a move for him. So there you go.
yeah.
Anyway, we'll get on the next one, Willie. So what are some of the most memorable games that you've seen Celtic play, and what's so memorable about those games to you?
Yeah, I was lucky enough. Like when I was a season ticket holder, it was right in the Gordon Strachan, Neil Lennon era when we were qualifying for the Champions League regularly, and teams were scared to come to Parkhead. So, like a few of the games I've written down was the 2-1 Barcelona game. Just everything about that game was just magical. We lived. I was actually moved to the Shetland Islands to work, and I met my wife up there, and we came down from Shetland for the game, and we did the stadium tour the day of the game. You could see the tifo display, but you couldn't. You could see what was laid out. You could kind of get an idea what was coming up, and then just being in Glasgow, going out for a meal, and then going up to the game after it, and watching us beat Barcelona. Like, you know what I mean? This is the all conquering Barcelona Pep Guardiola side. I know it was Tito Vanilla. Can't remember the guy's name now. It was right. Pep Guardiola had left, but it was still the same all conquering side that was there. The Xavis, the Iniestas, Messi. Jesus, you can just keep going, naming them and naming them. It was just, how did we manage to beat them? I just will never get it. But the most, one of the things that sticks out for that is my wife has never ever been to a football match in her life. She grew up in Slovenia in the Balkans, and like handball's her main sport over there. She'd never even watched guys kicking a football around the pitch or that. And at the end of the game, I turn around and says, "Well, that's it. There's no point in you ever going to another football match as long as you live, because you'll never, ever, ever top that for a night. You'll never top that atmosphere. Nothing. Like, it was just so special. It was unbelievable." Did you? How did you? How was it received down there with you guys? Like,
was a weird one because it was during the week, so it was like work morning. So trying to remember the time, would have been about a 6 a.m. kickoff, I think, or about a 5:30 kickoff or something like that.
Yeah.
The game would have been over by about 7:30, 8 o'clock. And it's like, okay, game's over. Don't get to celebrate too much. You've got to get in the car and get to work.
Uh,
Absolutely. Like, the emotion, like the adrenaline and, oh my God, we're going to win. And then you just suddenly like driving to work and then you sit at your desk and you're doing some stuff and it's like, gone.
all wears off and you suddenly crash. But like,
And then come home that
I
night
just
again.
Tony Watt running up the pitch, like nudging the wife, going, "This is it," and she's like, what's happening?" Like, and then Tony Watt scores, and just the whole place erupted. I going to the supermarket the day after when we arrived, and we at the checkout. I've got my big puffer Celtic jacket on because it was like cold winter and that. And the woman at the checkout, she's a Celtic fan. She's like, "Oh, what an atmosphere the other night. Did you watch it on the TV?" And we were like, "Oh, no, we were there." And she's like, "Oh, no, get out of here. Get out of here." Didn't want to speak to us then. She was all jealous and that. It was brilliant.
You got no shopping, Willie. You were told to get out.
Yeah, that was basically it. Like the old Tesco said, get out.
Yeah.
There's a few other games too in that Champions League run. There was the Milan 2-1 game. We beat the current reigning Champions League holders at the time. Came to town. They had Kaká, they had Ambrosini, they had Dida and goals. They had a pretty good team, right? And Kaká scored a penalty. McDonald scored first, and then Kaká scored a penalty.
I was going to say that's under Gordon, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then McDonald scored. Yeah. In the last minutes, I love the last minute goals at Celtic Park, don't they? Like, you know what I mean? It was a late winner from McDonald. That's the player came on the pitch. My uncle's, it was with my uncle. It was the first game I ever went to with my uncle, and he said, "Nudging, what? Look. Everyone's celebrating. I'm looking at all the fans going mad around the stadium, and my uncle's like, look, and the guy comes on the pitch and gives Dida the wee tap in the face. And then Dida goes down and he's injured, and it's just like, what's going on here? Like, that was another great night. It just rained relentlessly the whole night. We got absolutely saturated. And then there was, I think that same group we played Shakhtar. It was another game where we won 2-1. Massimo Donati scored a late goal. That was another phenomenal night. Gary Jarosik scored an absolute peach to level the score. I think there was a mistake in defence. Was it? I think somebody headed the ball out to Shakhtar, and Shakhtar got an early goal. And then Jarosik, he just volleyed in an absolute peach of a goal to get us back on terms. And then I think it was another one in the last strike of the match. It was Massimo Donati, another name from the past.
We're getting some names on this podcast, Willie, that haven't been said very often. Like Yuri Yaroslav and stuff like that. There you go.
Yeah. There's been some really good Champions League nights, but there's also some, like, there was a 3-0 victory against Rangers, but the one that really sticks out for me was the 2-1 game where Hesselink scored in the 96th minute. That was my first Old Firm game. It was an Old Firm game. It was before they died. So it was an Old Firm game. And I remember Nakamura lining up to take a shot, and I was like, he's not going to shoot from there. And he just absolutely ripped the net from about 40 yards. It was just phenomenal. As a first half of football goes, we absolutely pummeled Rangers in that first half. From start to finish, it just relentless. And then Nacho Novo came out in the second half and scored. I think it was like 5-10 minutes into the second half, and it was like, this is slipping away. This was slipping away, and it's just, we had to win. There was no ifs or buts. We were like 7 points behind with 7 games to go. We had to win that game, and we did. Hesselink scored. 96th minute, like the cheer, the eruption, the noise was just, you thought the roof was going to cave in the place. But one of the loudest noises off the night was actually the sound of the Rangers fans' seats clicking as they were all starting to sit down again, knowing that this league was slipping away from them, and the pendulum of power was shifting from one end of Glasgow to the other. It was a great night. Like, one I'll never forget. Like, as long as I live, it'll be there forevermore, etched in my mind.
That's good. And we'll go to the last question here for you, Willie. So, other than Messi and Ronaldo, okay, so we'll take them two off the table.
Yeah.
Just imagine this situation. Celtic has no issues with money. You can spend as much money on a transfer as you want, as much money on wages as you want, and every player has to say yes to come into the club. Who would be the one player other than Messi and Ronaldo that you've seen play in your lifetime and wish that they would have signed for Celtic?
Right, this is a little bit left field, but it would be Gigi Buffon, the goalkeeper. Because
Oh,
growing up, I was a goalkeeper when I played in school and I played in goals. And we had Paki Bonner, who was a decent keeper for us, but the pass back rule kind of killed his career. He couldn't do it after that, and he aged badly towards the end. And then in came Carl Magreton and Gordon Marshall and Stuart Kerr, and none of them were very good. Jonathan Gould came in after that, and he was okay. He added a bit of seriousness to it, and then Big Rob Douglas came in after that, and it's just like Jesus, this is bad, you know what I mean? So for me, Gigi Buffon, I think is a phenomenal keeper. I was at the Juventus game when we played Juventus in the last 32, the Champions League, and watching him, see his warm up. A lot of the keepers will do little throws and they'll do kicks back and forth. He's volleying balls straight back to the hands of the coach, and that just he's throwing it from the 18-yard box, and he's on the edge of the penalty box, and he's just volleying them straight back into his hands, and that just phenomenal to watch. Just an all-round class goalkeeper, And I think with Martin O'Neill, if Martin O'Neill had a class goalkeeper, we could have done a lot more in Europe. I think we would have won in Seville, and I think we could have gone deeper into the Champions League than we did.
Have to agree with you on that. Buffon, class player.
Yep.
My brother loved Italian football growing up, so seeing him even when he was at Parma back in the day, you could tell he was going to be something special back then. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
You just forget how many clubs he's been to and how long he was in the game. You know what I mean? He was just,
four clubs that I can remember.
he'd been around for so long. You know what I mean? It was just
Yeah,
phenomenal goalkeeper.
it's goalkeepers for you, Willie. So,
Yeah.
what we'll do is, I think we'll leave the Tim Talk pod there. We've had a good little chat there, Willie. So, thanks for getting on and giving us a bit of info about yourself as a Celtic fan and all that sort of stuff. And if you want to let everyone where they can find you on Twitter, go for it. Our social media channels are on the screen below. So Celtic Down on Twitter and Instagram. On Facebook and YouTube, you can just look us up, Celtic Down Under. You'll find us on there. You can find us on your podcast apps too. But Willie, where can everyone find you on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm Willie Innes 2 at Willie Innes 2 on Twitter. If you really want to put my tag name, it's Will I am. So that might be a bit hard for you to spell out, but I'm on there. I don't really get much interaction on Twitter, so if you do want to interact with me on Twitter, please do, because it's
Get on there.
a lonely place when I go on there sometimes.
Get on there, everyone. Help Willie grow his subscriber accounts, followers, and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so whenever our shows go live, you get notified. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Willie, again, and hail, hail.
Hail, hail.